The Baylor Bears just nabbed one of the best point guards in the transfer portal and one of the best leaders in all of college basketball. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
A very happy Monday to you, and welcome to a very special episode of Locked On Baylor, brought to you by LinkedIn. I am your host, Cam Stewart of ESPN Central Texas. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. Big news Sunday night. Jeremy Roach has committed to Baylor, and we're going to look at not only his profile, but what that's going to do for Baylor's team next year, and specifically that backcourt, and why Baylor might not be done in the transfer portal just yet. All of that coming up in today's episode, starting with the starters. The Baylor Bears needed to go out and get a point guard, if nothing else, for depth purposes. They went out and got arguably the best point guard available in Jeremy Roach. Roach committed to Baylor. It was story broken Sunday night by Joe Tipton of On3. After 4 seasons at Duke, Roach is on his way to Waco to be a part of Scott Drew's all-conquering Baylor Bears. And boy, you could not get a better fit than this for what Baylor needed. I'm telling you. Basically, they've had not bad point guard play by any means the last couple of years, but have lacked depth at that position. And what Baylor did for the 2024-25 season is they got probably the best point guard in high school basketball in Rob Wright, pure point guard, and the best point guard in the transfer portal in Jeremy Roach. So just massive news. This was one that was not even on my radar until Thursday. Roach had entered the portal, I believe, on Tuesday, while also putting his name into the NBA draft. Was projected to be like a second-round pick. Didn't have the athleticism that the NBA likes. You know, we just like having basketball players, and that's what Jeremy Roach is. And then Thursday night, that tweet from Jeff Goodman says that Baylor seems to be the front runner, and it's been a lot of checking Twitter and On3 and 247 and Field of 68 the last couple of days. But Sunday night, Jeremy Roach says, I am going to Baylor. Wow. What a massive get for the Bears. What a massive get. If you look at some of the issues they've had over the last 3-4 seasons, which have been very successful, at least in the regular season for certain, right? But one thing you think they might have lacked was a backup point guard and some depth at that position. And to be quite honest with you, I think they've had a bit of a leadership deficiency the last couple of years since that national championship team. And what you get in Jeremy Roach is one of the best leaders in all of college basketball, maybe the best. You're talking about a guy who played 4 seasons at Duke, one of the top programs in the country, obviously, maybe the most pressure-packed program in the entire country. He has been a point guard, so the most important leadership position on that team, for 4 years through 2 different coaches, one arguably the best coach ever in Mike Krzyzewski, and then the guy who has to take over for him in John Shire. So no shortage of pressure there. He's been a team captain the last 2 years. And one thing we've talked about is experience, that Baylor would do with some more experience on the team. He's played in 114 games. He has started 92 of them. That's incredible. Now, look, I know that's different. I use the experience thing because Baylor's had one and dones the last couple of years. And I know it's not exactly the same when it's a guy who comes in to just play for 1 year, but to have 92 starts under your belt at a program like Duke is incredible. And to be effective at it too. I mean, we're talking about an all ACC guy. And one stat that really jumped out to me is in the last 7 games of the season this past year, in which Duke went to the Elite 8, by the way, and what some Duke fans thought was a disappointing year. They went to the Elite 8, beat Houston to get there. In the last 7 games of the season, so the most important games of the season, Roach had 29 assists to 5 turnovers. a 5.8 assist to turnover ratio. That is incredible. When the pressure was on, he played the best basketball of the season. And oh, by the way, as a sophomore and a real contributor to that team, he went to the Final Four. So if we're talking about the places we want Baylor to be, bang. You've got a guy with over 100 college basketball games under his belt, has done it at a very high level, and has met those team goals, has played in the Final Four. He's won the ACC, and he has gone to the big dance and all the way to Final Four, which is what really matters in the end, and went to the Elite Eight again this year. Just such an impressive career. By the way, he had a pretty good game against Baylor in December. He played all but 15 seconds of that game and had 18. So, I mean, he's a guy who can obviously fill it up. I mean, he's obviously a point guard, not necessarily a pass first guy, more of that combo point guard. He averaged 14 points and over 3 assists a game and shot 43% from three. So everything you want in a Baylor point guard is filled by Jeremy Roach. And to go even more advanced in that, 55% true shooting. So like that is up there with the great Baylor guards, point guards, or shooting guards in this, I call it the Jacobs era of Baylor guards, where they have become one of the top offensive teams in the country. Like Roach's numbers stack up right there. And you want to talk about efficiency. You guys know how much I love box plus minus. So basically, if you follow WAR in baseball, wins above replacement, box plus minus is basically how many points are added or subtracted when you are on the court. So obviously positive is a good number for offensive. He went up by 4 points this year. You thought he had learned it all through 3 years of playing a ton of basketball. He increases efficiency a bunch in this year for Duke by 4 points. That's a huge jump. And by the way, the defense is something that I'm interested in and seeing if Baylor can be that lockdown defensive team, because they've had some good point guards come through here since the national championship win. James Akinjo, Keontae George, and Ray J. Dennis, but none of them came in as like great defenders, and none of them really left as great defenders. Well, you've got a pretty good one here. I'm not saying he's great, but top 20 in the ACC in defensive box plus minus and defensive win shares. Okay, that is a guy who can be a dog for you on the defensive end. And this is a guy who can lead you to those heights that you haven't been to the last couple of years. Like this is as good a finished product as you'll find at the top of the transfer portal list. You know exactly what you're getting with him. And I think you can turn this is a guy who is an all-conference player that you can turn into an all-American player. I mean, you did it with James Akinjo. That's a guy who had played at big programs too. And obviously Duke is the biggest of the big. And by the way, you beat out Kentucky again. You beat out Arkansas, you beat out Calipari, and in a way you beat out Duke. 2 really blue blood programs. So, I mean, you've got it all, right? Scott Drew turns down Kentucky for Baylor. VJ Edgecombe turns down Duke and Kentucky for Baylor. And Jeremy Roach already did the Duke thing. He turns down Kentucky to come to Baylor. Boy, the momentum is going seriously in the right direction for the Bears. And it all stems from, I think, Scott Drew not just being a great coach, but turning down Kentucky to come back to Waco, because now it's full steam ahead. Let's do this thing, man. And the way you look at this backcourt, which we'll talk about in a minute, it is salivating how good this team can potentially be next year. Whew, y'all. If you're looking to come play for the Baylor Bears, look, first off, get in line. But second off, maybe try LinkedIn Talent Solutions, because I know the people at Baylor basketball are putting it out there for their small business or something like that, because you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. And that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. It's not like any other job board, okay? It helps you hire the pros that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but might be perfect for your role, because in a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other leading job sites. So if you're not looking on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. Okay, because there, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats, I might not have the time or the resources to hire. That's why LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even launched a feature that helps you write the job descriptions. That's why 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions do apply. You add Jeremy Roach to this team, and what you have is one of the best backcourts in all of college basketball. I mean, look, Baylor was going to be pretty okay back there. They were going to be just fine, like top 15, top 10, just fine, with Robert Wright back there, who is one of the top recruits in all of basketball at the point guard position, especially. And I was thinking, going into the season, boy, it's been a couple of years since you've had a real true backup point guard who can run your offense for 10 or 15 minutes a game. And looking at this situation, I love Rob Wright. We're going to talk about him this week. As a matter of fact, I love Rob Wright, but it's very rare to have a guy, a freshman, who plays 30, 35 minutes. Pretty rare, especially as a point guard. And so I'm thinking, boy, you really could do with getting a backup in here and having some depth. And I'm thinking like Malik Mack is obviously a huge name at Harvard. He's one of the top guys in the portal, but I don't know if you can bring in a guy like that who can to be a backup. Maybe Doug McDaniel at Michigan. He ends up going to Kansas State. And instead, what Baylor did is they said, okay, why don't we get arguably the best point guard in the portal? And Rob Wright can be the understudy to him. And people might hear understudy for someone as talented as Rob Wright and think, that seems like a slight. First off, I promise it's not. And second off, what I really love about Jeremy Roach is those two can play on the court at the same time, Wright and Roach. Okay. We had on the Matt Mosley show this and the last week, actually on Friday, we had Isaac Trotter, who covers college basketball nationally. I mean, he knows this thing inside and out. And one thing he said he really liked about Roach was that he and Jared McCain for Duke could play on the floor at the same time. And they're both point guards. And that is something that it should not be taken for granted, because like, I love Ray J. Dennis, and James Akinjo's in this too. Love those guys. But you couldn't really play them on the floor with another point guard, because those guys were true point guards. There's nothing wrong with that. But Roach can play off another point guard. He's obviously a really effective shooter. Again, shoots at 43% from three. Good spot up shooter as well. So I love that they could both play on the court at the same time. And one thing that is also great about Roach is you watch those highlights. Go and watch those highlights of Jeremy Roach on YouTube, and you'll see, he runs a lot of high ball screens up there in Durham. A lot of European ball screen action. Yeah, so do we. That is the Baylor offense and has been the last 5 years. I kind of questioned it in Friday's episode on whether they would stick with it. That's something I'm still interested to see. That was a Jacobs staple. Are they going to stick with it? Well, that plays right into Jeremy Roach's strengths too. So yeah, you could have the style that has been very successful offensively for Baylor and have the pieces to go with it. I mean, the likes of which you really haven't had since 2021. And I'm not saying this is going to be a 2021 team. 22 as well, when Cryer was healthy. You had a lot of star power back there. But this backcourt is something else. Wright as a top 20 guy in high school basketball, Jeremy Roach with all the experience he comes with. And then we haven't even mentioned VJ Edgecombe, man. He's a top 5 player in America at the shooting guard. And oh yeah, how much did Jayden Nunn grow throughout the year? He started every game last year for the Bears. Like, you have the personnel that could propel you into a top 5 preseason ranking. And in that, just the top 3 of the Big 12, because our conference is that good. But I mean, the potential of this backcourt on both ends is tremendous. I've already talked about the offense. VJ Edgecombe is going to be a high energy, high volume scorer potentially for the Bears in year 1. But you look at the pure athleticism that he plays with and the coachability that everyone's talked about with him. That guy can become a good defender. Now, he's only going to be here 1 year, so he's probably not going to be a great defender. That takes time, but probably be a pretty solid defender with the energy that he plays with. Jayden Nunn, already a very solid defender. Didn't have a lot of great on-ball guys around him last year, okay? Jeremy Roach, we've already talked about, pretty good defender. And Rob Wright, same thing as Edgecombe. High-energy guy. You could teach him to be a good defender at this level. And he's a guy who will probably stay more than 1 year. So you might be able to, in 2 years, get him to be a great defender. We'll see. That's a long way off. So on both ends of the court, you are really taken care of here. And those are 4 guys, at least 3 guys who can shoot 35% or more from 3, preferably 38% or more from 3. And that just makes this team lethal, in my opinion. And there's a huge name I also haven't even brought up yet, because I could see him playing even some wing this year because of his physicality, and that's Langston Love. You remember that guy, Langston Love, the love machine, like, who was going to be the 6th man of the year in the conference? He's had his injury troubles. He's had a tough time staying on the court. But this was a guy who was averaging double figures off the bench last year when he was healthy. That is a loaded backcourt for the Bears. And when we talk about the shift that Baylor made from pretty good Big 12 team to elite, new blood, eventually national championship program, it was because of the guards. It was because of that high ball screen offense. And you have got some crafty guys in there, to the point where I really like Miro Little, but I don't know exactly where he even fits in this year. I mean, certainly there's a role for him, because there was a role for him this year, but man, there is a lot of high-end talent in this Baylor backcourt. And I can't even say enough how important it is to bring in a guy like Jeremy Roach, who obviously has the terrific stats to go with it. I mean, there's not many guys you're bringing out of the portal that are averaging 14 points a game. Those guys are staying with good teams or going to the NBA. So it's not common to have a guy like that. And so that's the one hand. You set that aside, it's rare to bring in a guy who's started 92 games at a school like Duke. Like, you're bringing in the experience and the production. And it's y'all might not even believe me that it's hard to bring in these guys, because 2 of the last 4 years, Baylor has brought in that guy, James Akinjo in 22, and now Jeremy Roach here for 24-25. And look, Akinjo's another guy I love. This is not a slander on him, but that was a guy who you were still a little unsure of. He was on his 3rd program by the time he got to Baylor. He was an all-conference guy, but there were question marks there about, why is this the 3rd program? Is he difficult to work with? Yada, yada, yada. You don't have that with Jeremy Roach, man. He spent 4 years at arguably the top program in college basketball, went to a Final Four with them as a real contributor as a sophomore. You are bringing in the real deal, the real article. What you have seen is what you are going to get, and then some. Boy, if you can't tell, I really like this commitment that Baylor just got. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, y'all, we are in the thick of it, okay? Tough day for the Mavs, but we are in the NBA playoffs and the NHL playoffs. Baseball is in full swing, so that's why you need to get to FanDuel and make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. It's so easy, in fact, that I can do it. I am printing money through FanDuel, okay? And if I could do it, anybody can. Bruins victory, Celtics victory, bang, money in my pocket. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Man, I am so excited about the Jeremy Roach thing, but the most exciting part about all of this is that Baylor's not done. Not done. They've got the crystal ball on Jonas Adu. So, like, you talk about positions of need, backup point guard was certainly one, and you went out and got a starting point guard. The other one is certainly the center position. And again, one of the top guys in the portal at that position is Jonas Adu, and you've still got a crystal ball for him to Baylor. In fact, if you look at the transfer portal rankings through any of the major outlets, Adu is ranked higher than Jeremy Roach, and 247 has the crystal ball to Baylor. He's in the top 10 there. He's in the top 10 on three. This guy is a legit star. I mean, an all ACC guy that averaged what I think it was 13-9 on a season. Like that's tremendous production to come in from the transfer portal. And that's the one that you expect. I mean, we expect to hear that in the next couple of days here, that Adu is going to flip from or leave Tennessee and commit to Baylor. The other one still looking at is Igor Milicic. He's a name that flies under the radar because you have Roach and Adu, two of the top names in the transfer portal. But Igor Milicic from UNC Charlotte could be a tremendous fit for Baylor. Tremendous. 6'10" wing who can shoot the heck out of it. Anywhere between 38 and 40% throughout his career. Played a year at UVA, has had 2 stellar seasons at UNC Charlotte. He's another one who comes in averaging double figures, who can rebound the ball too. So he's not some soft wing. He, like Jalen Bridges, can go in there and rebound the ball. So if you are able to, fantasy world, bring in all 3 of those guys, which actually fantasy seems weird. That's a real possibility. You can bring in all 3 of those guys. That's probably the best transfer portal haul of anybody in America. And couple that with a top 5 recruiting class in America, this is a scary, scary team, especially when it does all click, because it might not click right away. They'll still be a good team, but it might be like this past year where it doesn't click right away, but it will. And you'll have even more star power than you did this year. It is just a mouth-watering prospect, this Baylor team. Like, we could see them definitely as a top 10, but potentially as a top 5 preseason ranked team if you're able to bring in Adu and someone like a Milicic on top of Roach, Edgecombe, Wright, Asamoah, Boyd, all of those guys. And by the way, there is a small chance that you don't have a need for Igor Milicic, because Jalen Bridges could come back. I know it's not nailed on, but you talk about a guy like Jeremy Roach, who is probably staying in college because he's projected as a 2nd-round pick. Now, Jalen Bridges is on a lot of draft boards, but he ain't in the 1st round. And I think Jalen Bridges is going to be an NBA player. I really do. And I think his game fits the NBA very well. So if he does decide to go that route, then that's fantastic. We wish him all the best, and I expect good things from him, truly. But if he comes back, we're talking superstar level. In fact, Fran Fraschilla was on the Matt Mosley show with me and Matt on Friday, and I actually asked him about the guy's coming back and potentially Jalen Bridges. And he says, I don't know what his draft stock is yet, but if he does come back, that guy's an All-American. No doubt. He said that's like a Kevin McCullough at Kansas, like a 17, 18 point a game guy, because down the stretch, he was, I think, Baylor's best offensive player the last month or month and a half of the season. I mean, he was consistent in being a stud all year, but he really took it to another level with the shooting. Obviously, senior night was the big night for him, where he goes for 30 against Texas and just lights them up as a big part of that comeback and a huge emotional victory. So if he comes back, you're talking about one of the best talented teams Baylor's ever had. But that is, I don't want a false sense of hope there. If I had to lean one way right now, it'd be towards him going into the NBA draft. But if he comes back, boy, look out, because this team is already loaded and the names are going to start coming in again this week. More shoes are going to drop for this Baylor team. And we are going to be begging for November here because I feel that good about this team. Anyway, we're going to have a full spring game report on tomorrow's show. That was supposed to be today's show, but I knew this Roach news could potentially come in. So we got Matt Mosley on the show tomorrow, giving all his notes. And boy, there are a lot of them on this Baylor spring finale. And you're going to be excited about some of the guys he talks about on this offense. Trust me. I know it's 7-on-7, 11-on-11. They're going against air, but there is a lot to be excited about on the offensive side of the ball. Anyway, that's tomorrow's show. We are going to break down who is going to be the impact guys on that team. But let me know what you think about this Jeremy Roach commitment. Drop that down in the comments below and what this team could project as in terms of the rankings if they are able to bring in someone like a Jonas Adu or an Igor Milicic or potentially a Jalen Bridges staying. Please drop that down in the comments below. Thank you for making it your first listen today and every day. You can catch us 5 days a week and then some on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Be sure to like and subscribe, tell your friends, and we'll be back tomorrow with some football talk on your favorite show, Locked On Baylor.